And one thing I have to say is whoever's listening to this going, I'm not a writer, I'm not an artist. Creativity, one of my things I have to say is creativity is everything. So if you
Mhm.
have that spark, but you're scared of jumping in,
Mhm.
do it and focus on the process, not the end result or the product.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I geek out about the stories we're passionate about in all different genres, styles, and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and I started this podcast in the summer of 2020 at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. As I watched the reaction of my friends, family, and social media circle, I noticed that many people turned to stories for comfort and help in making sense of the craziness going on around them. My goal was to do the same for my listeners, but as I chatted with my guests throughout the first year, I discovered that their personal stories were the most fascinating thing about each episode. Neil Gaiman says, fairy tales are more than true not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. I now know that sharing our experiences with others helps us defeat our own dragons. It is our stories that connect us to one another. Let's see what wisdom today's guest has to share with us. So today is episode 50, and I'm talking to Isabelle Hardesty. And as I just said, we have been trying to get together for a while. So Isabelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Lucinda. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you coming and talking to me so much. And I am really interested in books about magic and books with dragons and books that are fantasy. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I am too. Over the years, just growing up, certain stories just pulled me in and kept me in. And I start off as a visual artist. I'm one of 6 children. My mother is a singer. And so just a very creative upbringing. So certain things spoke to my heart. And to make a long story short, I found myself at Dragon Con with my husband after my sister, who's actually turning 50. And this is the 50th episode. So happy birthday, Rachel.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. She told me about Dragon Con. This is when I was living in Atlanta with my husband. And I was like, okay. So we looked it up a little bit more. We'd never heard of it just because previously I was living in the Seattle area and I was living in South Florida, born and raised in Miami. And finally went there and we were like, oh my gosh, we love this. We just loved it because it's a sci-fi convention. Yes. I've never been to San Diego's Comic-Con, but a lot of people say that it's like the San Diego Comic-Con, just smaller and more intimate. And so we loved it. I think we went on a Friday and then we went, Saturday was sold out. So then we got a Sunday ticket and we bought the tickets for the next year, the full days.
Oh, wow.
And, so that was years ago. And I found myself, I would do a lot of the different panels and listen to the different actors or writers talking about their work, whether it was acting or writing or different aspects. But I found myself back in the Hyatt Hotel in the writers' rooms. Just, I text my husband saying, I'm looking, I'm at a panel. He's also a writer and an artist, but I found myself there a lot. And until finally they said, there's an open call for an anthology. And I was like, oh my goodness. And they're like, if you're here, that means you're a writer kind of thing. And I think Nancy looked at me kind of like, I see you all the time here. So I did it. And finally, after several months, I found out that it was accepted. So that let me know, okay, I know what I'm doing a little bit. So I learned more. I then created a series based on that short story. And that story was Jade's Awakening, where a young Afro-Latina teenager, she's a half shapeshifter and half fairy, which was the parameter set by the anthology.
Oh,
and it made me rethink things. I was like, whoa, they said no vampires, no werewolves. And I didn't know where I wanted to write, but I was like, what do I do? So I created a half shifter, half fairy character. And it was so much fun. I'm happy that they did that. So I took her story. She's Jade, and she has now a whole world around her. So it's Jade's Awakening, Jade's Descent, and Jade's Paradox. And I also have it as a box set.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I didn't see those listed on Podmatch. I only saw the Witch of Bellefleur.
Yes. So then years, like basically after writing Jade's Awakening, I jumped into the Witch of Bellefleur. And then I believe after that, I finished Jade's Descent and Jade's Paradox.
Uh-huh.
I started that book, but I actually finished it years later. But the Witch of Bellefleur is about a young teen Afro-Latina, Juliana Mariana Fontaine, who is a telenovela actress.
Oh.
Yeah. And it starts off where she's traipsing through the jungle. Not the jungle, excuse me. I don't know why. I was watching too much Disney Plus last night with my son. Traipsing swamps of South Florida behind her hunky best friend, Victor. And she asks him, do you believe in magic? And he's like, why are you asking? And let's just say that chapter 1 ends with a very big surprise. And she turns into lead witch.
Oh, wow.
So she starts off as a telenovela actress and ends up as a witch. And book 2, Midnight in Bellefleur, is out. Actually, by the time this comes out, it'll be out, but it'll be out next month, February 22nd, 2022.
Oh,
I just decided to go with 2s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. 2s. Yeah, I follow Pam Grouton, and she's an expert or a student, I'll say, of A Course in Miracles. And her daughter died suddenly from an aneurysm at 25. And she started this foundation called the 222 Foundation, where people and groups are doing things to help change the world and make it better. And so,
my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, I know. When I read that blog post, I just wept. And I'd never met Pam Grout. I did have her eventually as a guest on my podcast, but I just wept. I mean, because she was a single mom, and they were best friends, and she would take her daughter with her when she would do her travel writing assignments. So I just can't imagine, because I'm not a parent, but that must just be the most devastating.
Yeah, soul wrenching.
Oh yeah, right. So 2s are good.
2s are good.
Yeah, this won't air until June, sometime early June. But by then, hopefully, you'll have lots of people buying the book and still have some more interest.
Yes,
plus and the interest for your first set too.
The Witch of Bellefleur is doing well. I just entered it into a contest. I did it last year, and there was some good feedback, so that was nice. I got an email from a very big streaming company asking about my TV rights. So that let me know that, okay, I'm on the right track. So this year I hope to not even end the year, but start the year off with some awesome news, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And so the book, the first book is The Witch of Bellefleur, Midnight in Bellefleur is book 2. And then next year it'll be Return to Bellefleur. And that'll be rounding out Juliet's story.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. So I'll have to get all of those books and read them. I'm on a fantasy kick right now. Although fantasy and sci-fi, because I watched Barry and I, my husband, and I watched Foundation, and I had never read any of those books. And then we watched The Wheel of Time.
I haven't started that yet.
And I have never read any of those books. So I said, well, that should keep me busy all year. But now I have to read your books too. So.
I love fantasy and I love sci-fi as well. I will be doing a sci-fi book as well, because it just speaks to me. For Dragon Con, speaking of Dragon Con, I was on a panel last year for The Expanse. And that was such a blast. I was next to some experts on Expanse. One's Michael P. And it was fabulous. They had me on the panel and I was able to talk about things and I loved it. The audience loved it. I felt so at home. So I talked about Eric. Do you remember Eric from last season?
I've not seen The Expanse yet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, my teaching partner loves it and has watched it.
So I'm going to that's another thing, you have a list.
Too. And unfortunately, other things that you absolutely love already get on top. And that's kind of like how it works.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, that's one thing I do want to watch though, because he said that it was based on a book series and that they jumped because something about the way the series was, they can't do the whole
right
because of the time period. Yeah.
So I actually last night I just submitted my application for Dragon Con for 2022. So hopefully I get accepted to be back. We'll see, and I'll let you know. I'll send you an email, and I'll let you know. And last year was a blast. I was on several panels as an author. We talked about writing, creativity, a woman's perspective. And of course, I was on the Expanse panel, also a Buffy panel, where we had
fun.
It was. We had to select a season and make an argument for it, explaining why it was the best. And I had season 7, which was a hard sell, but I explained how Buffy was like her worst enemy, because she didn't think that she could actually win until one day she said, you know what, we're going to win. And all of her buddies were like, really? She goes, yeah, we are. And afterwards we're going to go to the mall. And I kind of correlated it with everyone being at Dragon Con, trying to live their lives. Of course, everyone had to be vaccinated and masked or negative test.
Yeah.
So, I said, and here we are trying to enjoy life. And so that was fun. It was fun.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Now, where is Dragon Con held?
It's in Atlanta, and it's in a few different hotels, Sheraton, Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, and Westin, I believe. So this year, same thing, Labor Day weekend.
All right. Labor Day weekend. Yeah. Now I know somebody, I don't know her personally, but I read her books, The Circle of Caradwyn with Octavia Randolph. And she goes to Dragon Con too, but those are historical novels about the Vikings going into England in the late 800s, early 900s. And part of the books is a couple of characters moved to Gotland. I had never heard of Gotland before I started reading her books. And so I had to look it up, and she loved it so much that she moved there. She moved to Gotland.
Where is Scotland? I mean,
I think it's part of Sweden, but it's in the middle of the Baltic Sea. It's an island.
Oh, wow.
Fairly large island.
I'll have to look it up.
And it's got, it's all this Scandinavian culture and food and myths, which of course include dragons.
Of course. So going back to dragons, Jade's Awakening starts off with Jade being dropped off at a sci-fi kind of convention. And her mother her mother says, be careful, mi amor, don't hurt anyone this time. And Jade's like, oh, Mom, just like most teenagers would be like, kind of like, don't bring that up. I'm fine. She drops her off. She's about to turn 18 that evening. She's going to meet up with friends. So some situations happen during the course of the day, and she's been taking suppression pills to not allow her supernatural abilities to come out, because her mom's like, we don't want to mess with that. We're just good citizens. We don't want to mess with that side of just that side. Let's just take it. And she had their little pills to take. So during the course of the evening, things happen, and her suppression pill is crushed by somebody. Find out and read it. It's fun. And then she's on the dance floor and things happen.
Wow.
She shift. And I loved writing that. It was just so fun. If anyone was watching me writing it, I'm like this. I'm just like, moving around as I'm writing it, as many writers do, weird things. Her ear elongates, her jawline opens out, starts to stretch out, splotches of color appear. Her dress starts to rip. And she ends up, going to the ledge and just taking off.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that's just the beginning. And so Jade's Awakening, wonderful characters. It was so much fun to write.
Oh, that's so great.
And
It sounds like you get the ideas and you just have so much fun writing them. And I do have a novel, but I'm struggling with the second one. And maybe it's because it's not fantasy. It's more magical realism. And the what's happening in the present is the part that I'm having the most trouble with because
sometimes, right?
Because of the pandemic and because all of the turmoil of the Black Lives Matter and the women's movement and oh dear.
We're feeling creatures. One advice that I would give you and myself, I have to give myself and remember, how can I just disconnect to connect to my creativity and that spark. Music is fabulous. The right song sometimes helps you kind of like, okay, I'm trying to write. I need to write. So yeah, just connect to the right song, maybe no words, maybe a song from a movie that you liked, but it's no words. That can just help you get into the flow immediately. Maybe essential oils. Before we started, I put some peppermint oil on this little tray nearby just to help me stay focused. Sometimes people talk about colors, just anything works. Tea. Get your little tea going.
Yeah, I talked to someone that's earlier this week, and he just reminded me, you just only have to do a little bit every day.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing, going back to that. Oh yeah, do it just a little bit every day. And I have another friend who helped me with my first book, who unfortunately died before the pandemic, and she said, your first draft is going to be crap. It's okay.
Yeah, that's true. It's nice to be kind to ourselves. The same way I have a feeling, Lucinda, that if someone is asking you, you would know what to say. If, and we were talking about this earlier before we started recording, but to apply what we know, whether it's self-care, writing, all the things that we know. But yeah, when it comes to ourselves, sometimes we're just like, we treat ourselves like robots. Like, I must sit down and write 5,000 words this evening. What?
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard somebody talking about reading big books.
Right.
And he said, if you only read for half an hour every day, you'll finish the book eventually.
True. Yeah. Bite size. I know they talk about bite-sized goals, whether it's writing or anything, but that's for the overachievers sometimes. Keep the kids that would sit in the front of the classroom are like, I don't need bite size. I can do a whole thing. It's like, no, even for us, it's like bite size. Just do it. It's better. We're taking more bites as opposed to a whole meal, nothing. Right. I know, because sometimes I fall into that going, I could do more. Right. And about just the bite size. Even if you can do more, don't. Just the bite size. And then we look back and go, oh, wow, it's been 20 days or 10 days of the bites as opposed to one meal, 2 meals. And it's just, yeah.
And you have more done. You have more finished. Yeah, that's right. And that's how it is with anything, any kind of personal growth. True. You can't do it all in one day.
No. And, I guess we can think about like plants. We can't get a plant and go, okay, I'm just going to give it a gallon right now. It's going to be overwatered, or it might actually get all the water, might be okay that day. And then I don't water it for a month. That's not work. But we do that with ourselves. We're like, I'm going to exercise for an hour or 30 minutes, hard, intense stuff. And then we don't feel good, or it kind of wasn't fun. So then we don't do it for 3 months.
Right.
Yeah. As opposed to a little bit walking, sometimes walking, just having fun. Yeah. Dancing.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So your husband's a writer too. Does he write the same kind of stuff you do?
Not really exactly, but his first book is called Memories of Hollywood. And it's a kind of a ghost story, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Ghost with some time travel. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a classic. Well, I love movies of any kind, but classic movies are one of my kind of close to my heart, because that, my dad and I used to talk about them.
I watched a lot of old movies, definitely classic movies.
That's so great. So, yeah, I never did ask you because sometimes I start my podcast by asking, how did you get hooked on stories and storytelling and reading or whatever it is? How did you get hooked on those?
Let's see. I loved writing. I mean, I loved reading when I was younger. And when I was in college, I remember a couple of teachers would let me know, wow, this is good writing. They liked my writing. And I was like, oh, I didn't really know what to do with it. It was a compliment and it felt good, but I didn't continue, but I kind of write on my own. And then, just listening to the right song kind of one day just made me just pour out a bunch of words. And I was like, oh, this is a book. And of course, it's like 120,000 words. It just was just a lot of things that I was putting together, but I didn't know. Then I learned the structure. And because I was like, okay, this matters to me. Let me learn more. And I would go to those writing workshops at Dragon Con, listening to what the writers would say, and writing down what they would say and learning. But it did take that anthology to make me learn how to finish something, just share it. Because before that, it was just my book that I was writing and I didn't really know what to do. So, yeah. But stories, I think, are beautiful. They teach us about ourselves, about the world. They remind us about our truth. Even if you're talking about a person standing on the ledge as a dragon, as a shape-shifted dragon, about to just jump off and leap into the sky and flap her wings. But I mean, that's pretty much what life's about. Taking chances again and again, forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, being courageous, being afraid, all of these things. So
yeah, right.
From the point of view of a teenager who's a shapeshifter / fairy, or a telenovela actress who's also a lead witch, why not, or Harry Potter, a young boy who's a wizard.
And didn't know it. Yes. Because there are all kinds of things we don't know about ourselves.
Exactly. And new experiences walking into Hogwarts, let's say, or walking into a swamp and she's trying to get cottonmouth snake venom, Juliet, my character from The Witch of Bellfleur, for her aunt who's sick. So she's getting that. And her friend Victor asks her, and she goes, I looked at this on a YouTube video. So she has a way with animals and she doesn't know why, but she just knows that she's pretty awesome in the swamps, never has issues. And stuff happens. It's really exciting. Chapter 1 and all the chapters. I made sure to end all of my chapters in a way that would make readers kind of, that feeling at night when you're at the end of a chapter and you kind of like start the next chapter, like, oh, it's good. Oh, maybe 30 minutes won't hurt me. That's what I was trying to do, because I've loved that feeling over the years. I mean, the next day I'm tired, but I've loved having that feeling of going, just read a little bit more.
Right. Yes. I read every night and I read until I can't keep my eyes open any longer. Yeah. But yes, I know that feeling. Yeah. I've even had that feeling. I just finished this book, How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy. And I had that same feeling with that. It was like, okay, I want to continue on. So I'd read a little bit of the next chapter.
A good feeling to have.
It was a really good book. And I haven't read nonfiction in a while. So it was nice to read some nonfiction. And I love the way some nonfiction books do not do this, but she did this. She was telling stories about her own life and why she was writing the book and what she had learned. And so that's always.
I agree.
Yeah. Engaging.
Yeah. I know that I've heard of this. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So when they make that connection, it just wakes up the reader or the person in the audience going, oh, they're actually a human being.
Yeah. I started at the beginning of the last year, I bought and started the book Eleanor, because I love Eleanor Roosevelt. Yeah. And I got about 150 pages in and I was like, I'm sorry, your research is great, but to me, this is a boring book. Yeah. I wanted to know, I guess I wanted to know things from her point of view, which is a sort of hard to do if
Well,
she's dead and,
I know, but some people do it. But you want to be like a fly on the wall of her life and see what was it like to be Eleanor Roosevelt? Because she's a fascinating character to me as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I just stopped reading the book. I let it sit on my nightstand a whole year. And then I said, I guess I'm not going to read this book now.
You're like, oh, I'll wait for the movie.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, my husband and I have watched things about on PBS. They might have been like American Experience or something.
Oh, yeah. Some of them are better, potentially better done. Yeah.
About not just about her, but about Teddy and her husband, Franklin. And so it was about the family. Yeah. And that was fascinating.
Yeah, I think my husband watched those as well. He loves them. And I might be kind of walking by, getting drawn into it because, it's well done, captivating.
Yeah. So I really like her as a person, but I wanted to read something that was more, I don't know.
Something you want to get something from it.
Yeah, I mean, I did get things from it. Like one of the things I got from it was she went to Paris to school and she met this woman who was an activist there, who was one of the instructors. And so that's kind of what ignited her passion for activism. And Franklin was sort of also in that same mindset, which is, I find it very interesting that they came from this very wealthy family, but they had this deep sense of social justice.
That is nice. That is really important.
Yeah. And even Teddy was that way. And so it was like, well, because not everybody in the family was like that. So what made them like that?
I agree.
And so her going to Paris to this school and meeting this woman is kind of what ignited it for her. But I couldn't get past that. Once they were married and he was doing his, getting into the political thing, it was like, I
know. When you were talking, it just, for some reason, it reminded me of sparking my love of stories. When I was teaching, I had to come up with a way to keep my students engaged as an art teacher. And my students were no longer doing art and they were lined up. You know how it is with children in a line. You don't get busy. Someone's pulling someone's hair, bugging them. So I'd have to, I would say, so once upon a time, and I'd come up with a story on the fly to keep them engaged while the teacher would be finally coming down to get them. And kids are a tough audience. They're a tough audience. There's something sounded like something like, that's Pinocchio or whatever they would say, or that's just so-and-so. That's boring or whatever. So I'd have to come up with ways to keep them interested. And then the next class would be there and I'd do the same thing. And maybe a week later, the class would say, can you tell us that story? What happened next? I was like, what did I tell you? And they're like, kids went into the forest and their feet got stuck in mud. What was next? And I'd have to come up with something. That was really a good way, like a good exercise that I found myself in. But it engaged them and it kept them busy and out of trouble.
Yes, really. I did work in Montessori schools and daycare centers and child development centers. And sometimes I would do the same thing, trying to get them to go to sleep.
Oh,
tell them a story.
It's nice to be actually learning too. It was a good experience for me.
Yeah. But I was like, at that time I thought, I couldn't be a writer.
Like it's somebody else. It's someone else's job, right? I can come up with stories that are engaging and people like them, but I'm not a writer.
Right.
And that's another thing about believing in yourself, stop guessing yourself, self-love, self-care, all those things that we see, we like them on Instagram, but it's about, I think, in 2022, it's about active self-care or whatever / radical self-care, but doing it, not just liking it and then turning off the computer, turning off your phone and saying, I have to write 50,000 words this week. Really? Yeah. Or I'm, seeing someone else's post and going, oh, I'm not good enough. Or why can't that be me? Many times it is us. It's just that we don't see it. We just have to believe in ourselves and, not to give up. And that's also linked with why fantasy stories are so important, because so much of that is in those stories about believing in oneself, for the power to come back or for the power to grow. The main character has to believe in herself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it also, I acknowledged this with the very first Star Trek, because I was a child when it came out, and it was like I could see what they were doing. Oh, they are addressing social issues, but they're doing it in a way, in this on this other planet or whatever, which makes it more palatable
exactly
to address. And I remember the episode with they were the only two left of their species.
Okay.
And one had black on one on the left side. And then they were opposite, and they thought that they were so different.
Right.
And the people on the Enterprise are like,
what? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same.
That was a very powerful message, done in a way that people are just like, watching it, eating popcorn, and going, oh, wow, this applies to our life too. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just have found that one powerful. There were others that were like that were very powerful. Any kind of sci-fi or fantasy, or sometimes even historical, can make you see the world from a completely different viewpoint. Yeah.
I remember years ago, I found out that I think Edward James almost mentioned that the writers, he's amazing. I met him at Dragon Con with my husband. He was signing his photograph. We should put it on the wall. It's amazing. He's amazing. That they were invited, some of the actors and the writers and maybe producers were invited by the United Nations several years ago to speak about conflict resolution based off of the newer Battlestar Galactica. Isn't that amazing? But it's the truth, because at the end, you realize some people were Cylons. Some people that hated Cylons were Cylons. I won't break it, I won't spoiler it for anybody, but the only way they could move forward was working together, potentially, without ruining it for anybody. And
yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah, it is. Well, and Nichelle Nichols.
I met her.
NASA.
And, yes. Her work helping bring people of color into NASA.
Yeah. I think that's so fantastic. Because I'm just this white woman, probably all my ancestry is completely white. But I don't know what it is. I guess I'm empathetic enough that I wanted to know more about other cultures, or I wanted to acknowledge that I don't know everything there is to know about other cultures. And it would be, it's good. It's good to try to understand. Yeah.
I've heard this said before that some, I guess certain art forms, let's say books, some books are like a window looking inward, and it's just all about one's own life, whatever that is. And other books can be a window out and seeing other things, which is exciting.
Right.
But then in that looking out, we always self-reflect, of course, even again, if it's about shape-shifting dragons and witches in the South Forest swamps, you just kind of go, oh, what would I do? Or, oh, I can understand why she felt betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or scared about her powers.
Exactly.
Those kinds of, because I can't tell you how many times I was like, I want to try this thing, but can I do it? It wasn't until I was a little bit older, and I was smart, I think. I didn't go to college until I was 22. I decided when I graduated high school, I wasn't ready to go to college. And so going and being a little bit older, I was able to go, I think I'll try that.
That's cool.
I'll try this thing or that.
When you're old enough to understand what you're getting into, it's true.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, this has been so fun. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Find me at IsabelleHardesty.com.
Yes, I will put all of that, all your social media, your
Oh, yeah.
your website. I'll put all of that in the show notes.
And one thing I have to say is whoever's listening to this going, I'm not a writer, I'm not an artist. Creativity, one of my things I have to say is creativity is everything. So if you have that spark, but you're scared of jumping in, do it and focus on the process, not the end result or the product. So just enjoy the feeling of the paintbrush on the canvas or the paper. Enjoy active typing in your computer or writing it freehand. Just enjoy the process of creativity.
Yes. Or even just gardening. My sister-in-law is this amazing gardener, and her backyard is just this beautiful show place of, flowers and plants. And so, or I have another sister who's really good at cooking.
Oh yeah.
Loves cooking.
Art forms.
Yeah, that's what I used to tell, because I'm a teacher too. And when I was teaching high school, I would say to my students, everybody has a genius for something.
I agree. Definitely.
And so just find out what yours is and then go for it.
Most definitely.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you're just the best friend there is in the world. Go for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're in that audience and someone's talking about an anthology, they're talking to you.
Right.
There's an opportunity for this, and you realize that you're in that room all the time. You're like taking notes going, are you talking to me? Yeah, they're talking to you. Take a chance, jump in and have fun. See what you come up with.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. And you don't have to, my niece she writes all the time, but she hasn't shown it to anybody yet, but I imagine someday she will.
Certainly will when she's ready.
Yeah. When she's ready. Yeah.
Oh. Thank you so much, Lucinda. This has been a pleasure.
Oh, good. Yes, it has been fun. I'm glad we finally got to get together.
Yeah, definitely worth it. I'm happy that we didn't give up.
I am too, because I was looking forward to talking to you back in the fall. Well, you take care. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you very much, Lucinda.
Before I go, I'd like to give a big shout out to Podmatch, which I call a dating service for podcasters. Since I joined their platform, I have met so many wonderful people from all over the world, and they make the matches so easy that if you are a podcaster or you have a message that you want to share, you might want to consider checking them out. The affiliate link is at the bottom of my show notes on my website at Sage-Woman Chronicles at sagewoman.life. Part of what I love about them is that they promote civil conversations, and can't we use that right now? So if you check them out, tell them Lucinda sent you. I'd also like to invite you to my Patreon community, where we will have chats with authors or creators. We'll have member chats about the stories that they love, and occasionally we'll have extra episodes or uncut episodes of Story Power. So please go check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/storypower without the hyphen, all one word. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. And remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.